Good evening. Hey, right. Always like it when I get a black screen when I'm not expecting it. It's always unhelpful. Let us do a little bit of shenanigansing in here and get rid of some binging, because otherwise that will drive us all balmy. There we are. Let me find me on Facebook. That's always also equally a good start. Good evening, Maxine. Thank you for joining me. Excellent. I can do that. I turn that down. Hopefully we'll get no extra noise. Good evening, Connie. Hi, Jan. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you very much. I always like to check before we go doing anything else. Oh dear, will I be organised? Well, maybe not. Maybe not. Oh dear, we have done a bit of prep. Because after last week's live, that just went on for a silly amount of time, I thought I would do some bits and maybe have a little less time on live today. We will see. We've still got a silly amount of painting to do, so why would we not? Now, before we start, I have 3 gnomes. So don't all rush, but could someone make some suggestions as to what 3 colours might work for my gnomes, and I'll see if I've got those anywhere to hand. So suggestions for 3 colours for the hats and the clothes for the gnomes, because I haven't got any, well, I've got a big box of colours out, but not lots of other things. So let's see who's coming in. Good evening, Connie. Hello, Jan. Thank you, Faith. Good evening, Ari. Hi, Angela. Good evening, Sheila. Hi, Kim. Welcome. Good evening, Jury. Oh yes, my Facebook thing has now, and I've now got hopefully that's going to settle down, because I've got a nice circling while of doom at the moment. But on my computer it says we're streaming without a problem. Whoever knows? Right. So I have an 8 green, yellow, purple. Okie dokie, I can do green, yellow, purple, I think, without a problem. That shouldn't be too big a header. Red, blue, green. You see, I knew this would cause havoc, and that we would have a whole mountain of people that would, very helpful suggestions. Whatever. I'm going to have to refine myself on the Book of Face, because it's been doing this a lot to people recently, which is throwing people out of lives. And then, you see, and then causing havoc. Primary is red, blue, yellow. That sounds cool. We will pick shades of those that will will work. Red, blue, green, red, blue, yellow. Yeah, primaries or muted colours work, partly because of the paper I've chosen. So this is just an 8-inch canvas, and it's got a approximately 1 centimetre ish return on it, so the gap between the bottom bit and this bit. And one of the headaches with decorating shadow canvases or reverse decorating canvases is you have to contend with the staples that hold everything together, and they always, to me, look an absolute flipping mess. And often, so I like to cover them basically, and that's fine. So you can cover them with paper, that will work. You could cut off the canvas and just staple it back on the back so it doesn't have anything going round, that would also work. But structure paste, texture paste, anything with a bit of body will also work, and some colour. So I've added the texture paste onto the return, these here, a little bit. I'm just going to add a little bit more because it needs to dry, and I thought if I tried to do it all on the live, I'd have so many wet surfaces that I was bound to make a mess. Yeah. So, and I think my pot of structure paste possibly has been open for longer than prudent, but that's also okay. So I'm just going to add this on to this. It will stick. I promise you, it will stick. You will stick. Of course you will. And yeah, I don't want it to be completely smooth, so that's okay. If you wanted it completely smooth, you can make it completely smooth, but I'm thinking that some texture might look a little bit like an old wall in the garden. Well, so goes the plan, and I can see an area there that I've missed when I pop that onto there. So let's just pop that in, add a little bit more there, and we'll carry on. But this is really so that I can then set this aside to dry just whilst there we are. You can see I'm getting a nice textured rough, not quite pebble dashed effect, but there we are. A wall that looks a bit old and a bit decrepit and a bit neglected and a bit falling apart. I know, what a set of adjectives. That's really, well, you know, particularly when I feel a bit like falling apart, but hey ho. There we are. But as I say, this structure paste has been open probably a good year, and that's probably my bad, because it gets, as you know, very hot in my conservatory, which is all very, yeah, it's sort of, the stuff that's opened has a habit of drying out. And of course, when I'm on a live, I don't bother, yeah, as I've not done here, I don't close it until I've finished using the, yeah. So in the summer, that means that it stays open in the warmth of the room for quite an amount of time, but it's not completely solid. I can still work it, so that's all is good in the world. Don't want that piece in there. I think Facebook's just being difficult at the moment, though. It's doing all sorts of strange things. So if you haven't got a texture paste, then make your own washed garden sand, please, or play, you know, rather than anything else, or something that's a bit granulated, mineral powder, crushed stones, anything that will give a gritty powder into a thick white paste, and you can ultimately, you know, make a texture paste of your a structure paste of your own quite merrily. I am going to give that, before I stop shut it up, a good, there we are. It's just, there's quite a thick layer on there, and I need that to work. So I'm just going to give it a, there we are. So as I say, I'm wanting a rough surface, so that's a, so let me do that. The products from Pentart are all water based, so the thing that disappears when you are when you leave bottles open is water. So adding some cooled boiled water, there we are, and I'll let that reconstitute bit by bit by bit. Oh, my bad, I didn't get out any gel medium. So that lot can then go, wow, it's all adds to the fun of life, doesn't it? Okie dokie. Good evening, Elizabeth. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Friday evenings are never good. So, I'm mixing it, I really am mixing it up tonight. Right. So, these 5 pieces all come from Hidden Grove, from 2 different moulds. So the gnomes are all in one, and the other, the barrel and the pot of plants, well, the stacked pots with the greenery in the top, are from a different soft mould. And then I've raided older collections for these, and this one comes from Masquerade, I think. Anyway, so I've just got a collection. So but choose whatever potted plants you want, or leave them off as you choose. And there is a lovely wheelbarrow being pulled by a gnome in the gnome mould. I'm not using it because it's got a strawberry in it, and that's not right for where I'm going with this project, because the paper I have chosen, continuing on mission use up what you have, is this one from the Altergo collection, which was released just before Christmas, and it's not a bit Christmassy, so it's out a bit unloved over that stage, but it's a rather nice cushion, and I really love that background. But we're going to use this side, and this is essentially a reverse shadow box with lots of things. So I've cast my pieces with resin, and they have all had a layer of primer paste, aka white gesso added. The Pentart white gesso is, this one is a paste, you can see, and if I stand it up and just tip it upside down, I can sit here safe in the knowledge that this really isn't going anywhere. So it will work as a gesso. It will also work as a white stencil paste if that's what you want to do with it, and you can water it down if it's too thick for you. So yeah, but it's nice and thick, so it's not going to get slopped everywhere. Right, now then, let's see what I have in my box of tricks, and we'll separate these out a little bit. So those are pots, that's a butterfly there. Right, eeny meeny. So in my box of tricks I have all sorts, including my beloved antiquing products. So so what do we want? Oh, and some ribbon. Well, we don't need that, so that can go out the way. That was out from a different project. So we will need, we might have to go and get some others out. So that one is compact powder. That's a nice face colour. So red, green, yellow for the gnomes. So we have a green, we have a red, we have a purple, we have a beige, we've got, yeah, that might be the same, we've got blue, we've got a turquoise. So we have, what we haven't got there is a yellow or a terracotta, and that's okay because they will be in the drawer just behind us. So that's a terracotta. That's a sun yellow, and we can mute that one down. So there we are. That will work, and we've got white for white gesso. So that will give us a reasonable colour palette. Mint. Maybe I don't want mint. Maybe we'll go for country vintage that, and we'll go for country blue, I think. Country blue. You see, it's what happens when you've got so much stuff. Yeah. There we are. Oh, I think. There we are. Right. So there we are. Nice colours picked. So let's start by putting... finding some nice brushes. It's always good, I think to have some nice small brushes. So that's an okay small brush. That's an okay small brush. That's an okay small brush. We'll go with that lot for the starting point, and we've got more I can grab in front of me if we need. So there we are. Let's just clear some of this gubbins off screen so that we can see what we're going on. So compact powder is from Pentart, my preferred skin colour. Obviously, if you are a woman of colour and that's what you prefer, then choose an alternative colour, but this one will work for me. So let's just add, so we'll do these. So we've got a face with a beard, but we definitely need to have the ears a skin colour, so that will good. And if I don't want to be messy, but I also, there we are. Well, I know that's his moustache painted, but that's okay. I'm going to go over that anyway, so that's okay. We'll just have that ear colours because they are pointy ears, and then let's just do these little hands. So small brush, patience, none of which I actually have, of course. I do have a small brush, but patience is not my things. So I trust that otherwise everyone is well. My husband is still not quite right, I would say, after his last hospital admission, but he's better than he was, which is always a good start in the right direction. So we've now got a face on those. Good evening, Alison. Hello, Sue. Welcome. Never any need to say sorry. It's always there for catching up. You see the little pointy ears. They're so cute. There we are. Let's just... nose needs colouring. I'm just going to do that like that, and I'll come back over that later on. Now then, are his hands in pockets? Are both hands in pockets? I think they are. So it's just a question of looking at these. This might be a bit more of a challenge. There we are. He's clearly got a hat. There we are. Let's just do it because he's side on. There we are. And then we can pick up the pieces and tidy up what I want to afterwards. But it's easier to get, I think, this skin colour into it first, and then I can come back once this one's dry and add the next layers, because that's just part of the fun. And hopefully tonight we will not quite be here for as long as we were last week, which I apologise because that was a little bit of a mammoth activity. There we are. There's a hand. There we are. I'll leave that paint out there, and we can come back and throw it away if we need to. There we are. Excellent. So that's that. So those need to dry, but we can do some of the clothes. So let's go. So the papers definitely don't work with true primaries. Because it's all a bit dark. It's a bit bright because the tones in the papers are definitely more muted. So let us just do a little bit of colour mixing so that these will work better. Still be blue, but will work better with the shade of the colours that are in the papers, because then they won't stand out like a sore thumb. If you like complete contrast, then of course then you do you, and that's what you that's also absolutely fine. But this, I think, will just, you see, it's softening that blue down just a little bit. It's still blue, but it's just a softer colour by adding that very pale bluey green to it. And I actually think that I can coat, it'll take a bit more of that. You watch and I'll swap it and then make it the wrong shade, completely the wrong shade. If you had denim, that would work, a yellow or a denim colour. There we are. So we've got softer bluey green. So let's, because they're all you know, we don't want them all in the same colour dungarees, I don't think. But so let us just right, this will prove the inevitable challenge. There we are. Yeah. And that is definitely a pocket in the jeans, so let's just pop that into there. So that's in the pocket. There we are. So who has seen the adverts for the new Ciao Bella papers? Have I been naughty, ladies? What do you think? What do you reckon? Have I been naughty? Because they're on pre-order at the moment. Let's just be slightly careful there. And then I might be able to pay attention to what you're saying in a minute. There we are. Hi Dominique. Welcome. There we are. Of course, I forget that there's always quite a delay between me asking a question and it actually filtering through on the feed. There we are. Blue hat, ladies? What? Which of the new collections do you think I've been naughty with then, Lou? Which ones do you think I've been naughty with? Seeing as you'll know what the new collections are. Well, I think you'll probably know what the new collections are. There we are. Okie dokie. So that's provided that we might. So primary colours was the suggestion, wasn't it? So because yes, I have been naughty. I've been quite self-restrained. I didn't spend a stillion. Yep, you've got it in one. That's exactly what I've gone for. That is exactly what I went for. Now, last time I muted that brown with that red with a brown. Brown has basically all of the primary colours in it. So you can mix, by mixing those up, let's just add a bit of red. We'll just soften these colours. There we are. We still want red, but I don't want in your face pillar box red for this project. Yeah, I did, and Codex was the other one that fell in the Codex Ephemera book that fell in my thing, and some of the stamps. So yeah, there we are. Okay. Let's just take our little one with the things. There we are. And give him a red hat. There we are. And then let's just do the dungarees. Will prove a little bit of a challenge, I think, but hey ho, we'll get there. We will get there. It's just a question of being methodical, and we can decide what colour shirts we want once we've got the bulk of this done and some of these layers drying, because if you try and just add all together, then all that happens is you'll mix the colours. So that pair of trousers actually comes down over the top of that boot. You can see it's all a bit wrinkled, as if it's a bit big for him, but that's okay. careful not to move the colours about too much. And I think that's where the top of that boot might be. If it's not, it will become obvious at some point, and I might regret that decision, but there we are. There we are. So we now need to add a line up there. We can tidy that up. There we are. And a line up there. There we are. And that will need a bit of tidying, but that's okay. There we are. Yellow. Thank you. I like the Codex. So last week I used the yellow and it was very thick, and so I whizzed in quite a lot of water, and I've just left it sitting in there, and you can see that that's rejuvenated that quite nicely. So there we are. And and this is clearly one that I should have also done the same. So let's just put a bit of that terracotta into there. That looks like it actually does need a bit more of a mix. So let's just shove that into that pile of water in the bottom, and that might be one that ultimately goes in a bin. There we are. I think I'll enjoy them. So the bright yellow I think is too bright. The terracotta will work beautifully for the pots. There we are. Let's just wriggle that brush in there and into here. Give that little bit of a clean. Get rid of most of that. Don't want orange. Let's take up that yellow and that, and then let's just muddy that down so that I have yellow, more of a yellow than an orange. I think mustard was the colour we went for last week. There we are. So variations on the primary. And then I'm going to add some purple. I know someone suggested purple. I'm going to add some purple to some of it. So this natty young man can have a mustard coloured jacket. There we are. He's going to have a brown backpack, but that's fine. There we are. And we'll let that dry, and then we'll not ignore the suggestion for purple, having asked people what they wanted. We'll try and accompany all of the colours, because you can do. It's just a question of getting the right tone for the piece that you're making. There we are. So we might be here a little while, ladies. We might. While I just poodle away in my own world, because why wouldn't you poodle away in your own world? There we are. So that's a nice jacket there. There we are. I might carry on. I'm going to soften that yellow now for this one, and my intention is to soften it by scooping up some of that compact powder and some of that yellow. I might need a bit more of the compact powder. I think, looking at that, we've got more in the pot. We can always add more. Don't want to add that red into there though. There we are. I think that. Let's just soften this a bit further. Good evening, Uti. Hello, June. Good evening, Julie. Hello, Liz. Yeah, let's let's just add quite a lot of that into there. Right, looking for a nice clean top, and of course I've not got a nice clean top. I'm just wanting something that's a bit paler, just for the shirts on the other two pieces. Let's just get rid of a lot of that so we don't slop it every which way. Oh, I think that will work. And I think, as ever, some of that red is going to need to be added with another layer, but that's not unusual when working with red. So let's, yeah, that's going to work quite nicely, I think. And we've got a little bit of a shirt to pop into there, and so you can just see that by playing with your colours, adding your layers, you don't need every colour under the sun. You can just mix and match to your heart's content. So I'm rather liking that almost custardy colour. You can definitely see I'm going to need to put some more red onto him, but that's okay. There we are. And of course, as gnomes are imaginary creatures, you can have them any colour that you want, really, can't you? We'll add some white back into the beard. Well, I'm going to use off-white, which is, as I said last week, it's almost a green colour. Right. Okay. Let's just pick up some of that red that I altered and add it into the bits that I can see I've missed. My bad. There we are. Okay. So give that a little wriggle, and then let's see what we've got in terms of a purple. Mallow. Think mallow will work? I think mallow will work. Again, it's not a colour that I use very often, but actually tonally I think it's quite good. So we all have colours that we like, and we all have colours that we don't like. The mallow might be the purple might be the more dangerous choice, because there really isn't any purple in the paper, but let's go for it. So let's just give you a nice purple. Hat and breeches. Oh dear, that was obviously water held in that brush. There we are. Let's just add that. We can add the detail back into the goggles that are on here, because it wouldn't be a Farrell collection without there being an element of steampunk, but we can add that in later on. Okay. So let's give him some purple breeches. There we are. I think that's going to work quite nicely. Might not have been a colour pick that I would have made, but thank you for the suggestion, because I'm rather liking it. There we are. Cool. Right. Now, while that lot's out and those get a chance to dry, I'm just going to pop from my spray bottle that's now going to contaminate everything. There we are. Let's just actually mop that up, because that's what's going to happen. Let's just pop a bit of water down there, because my terracotta paint just needs a bit of friendly reconstructing. And actually, I think it's almost too ochre-y. It's called yellow clay, but is the colour of it. But I'm thinking I might prefer something that isn't quite that shade. There we are. that might be better for me. So let's just do the plant pots for that are going to go with the piece. And I'm just I'm taking my time doing this, and because I know I have to eventually I'm going to add some colour to the structure paste I put on the my 8x8 canvas, and that's just going to need some time to dry, so that's okay. We will just pop these on. It's a bit more of a challenge to paint all of those flowers and the leaves, and in fact that one really doesn't have masses of definition in it, but that's okay. We will cope, because they're interjoints in the matter. We'll have something that looks like a blurry pot or a pot of greenery with some small flowers on it at the end of it. There we are. So my intention is that next week I'm going to do a companion piece, and then I'm going to link the two frames together and decorate the front, and probably just keep the back very simple. That's the plan. Whether the plan comes together is an entirely different matter. Good evening, Isabel, welcome. So let's just give ourselves a nice wood barrel. I think that paint is actually called chocolate, but for me, I suppose it's milk chocolate coloured really, isn't it? But we can add some stuff. There we are. I know I haven't seen online for ages, and that's Sarah Much. I must message her and make sure she's okay, because I know she's not always in the best of health. There we are. That will work for that. Now then, what colour boots do we want? I know I want my backpack to be brown. There we are. Do we want black boots or dark brown boots? Answers on a postcard, aka on Facebook, in the comments. There we are. Let's just add a bit more of that purple into there. There we are. Okay. Right, we need a green. There we are, mojito. It really is a very bright green, but that's the one I've got, and I can mute it if I want to. Let's just add a little bit of that brown, soften that down a little bit. So it's amazing how much difference just adding a little bit really does make to your colour choices. Right, this might prove slightly more challenging. Actually, it's not so bad. So let's just add in some splodges of green onto here. Being slightly careful because that terracotta pot is still slightly wet. There we are. And for those that normally follow me, I'll be delighted to know that I have a live for Pentart next Tuesday, and up from the current plan, of course, is subject to change because nothing's set into it, is always set into, is that I will be returning to my weekly Pentart lives. Can't see any more leaves in there. from the week of the 15th. Let's just add just a little bit more of that brown. Yeah, that's better. Into that. So that will be good. So we'll just add some more leaves into that. Into this one. Are they carrot tops? I don't know. I do not know. So yeah, so then we'll be going back to lives 3 times a week. Pentart have downloaded all of their Facebook lives to their YouTube channel. So they are all there for people to see whenever they want. Let's just add. So all of this detail is in the moulding. I think that, yeah, that's another leaf over there. Quite, the flowers have all sort of almost all merged into one. There is texture on them, but it's really quite difficult to make out the rest of the details. There we are. Okay. So I haven't had any more comments, which is fine. Do we want black boots, ladies, or there we are, or dark brown boots? Black boots or dark brown boots? Happy to have suggestions. I need the black out anyway. Good evening, Deirdre. Welcome. Welcome. Brown. Excellent. Okay. I have an answer. That's all I needed. So you can see that what I'm doing is that by literally having a relatively small number of colours, I can, and then by mixing, I can change the shades to the ones I want for the project. So it means that I don't have to have ridiculous numbers of colours of paint. I mean, I have enough as it is, to be fair. I really do have enough as it is. But if you get confident with blending your colours and mixing them up, then it actually you can work with a relatively small number of pots of paint, and then colour mix for yourself, which will save you an absolute fortune. There we are. And that's quite useful because, you know, unless even for me, I mean, I struggle sometimes to go through all of my pots of paint, you know, before they dry out. You've all seen me with pots of paint that have dried out, yeah. There we are. Cool. So if you can limit the numbers of pots that you have open at any one time to ones that, you know, that you have multiple uses and you can mix together to get your shades and your tones, then you'll end up wasting less product overall, which is always a good thing in my book. There we are. Cool. There we are. I'm going to need to take some white in once the colours are dry and tidy up the beards just a little bit because they're a bit messy at the moment, but that's fine. I will do that bit at the end, but the key is to have dry paint before you do that. There we are. We will be having to do a bit of drying at some point stage, but you know, we're getting there, slowly but surely, or maybe not even so slowly tonight. There we are. So you've got those, you've got those, I've got those. Right, let's just have that, and let's just go for, let's just paint the handles of our wheelbarrow black. There we are. I knew I needed it out anyway, so that's okay. Might need to get some, put some more out, but that's also okay. There's lots of texture in that handle. Right. Now there we are. We will need some more. People are very quiet tonight. Good evening, Belinda. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's a long time since I've seen you live on Crafting Together with All Browns, but I know you watched. You bobbed in the other week and had a little look at what I was up to. It's all cool. I'm still using Lady Vagabond. I've still got some of it sitting on the side. So you just have to take time when you're doing things like this. There isn't such a thing as rushing it. Well, there is such a thing as rushing it, but it's usually means that you regret it, because you then have to spend ages touching everything back up, which is fine, but then that often takes as long as if you'd taken a bit more time in the first place. Absolutely. I mean, it does just make it much easier, doesn't it, when you've mixed the colours into each other, because you know tonally then that there's elements of each colour in each thing that you're making. So you are right. It does definitely help. How things work together. I mean, Stamperia have a palette of colours that they mix up, but essentially their product, they have a relatively tight palette of colours and then go back to them time and time and time again. Right, let's get the black off there, because if we don't, what will happen is we will then end up with murky black purple flowers. Right, let's pick up so that one is mallow, so that's the same, and that is gillyflower. You can see it's a different shade. So one definitely had the mallow, this one has a red base, and the gillyflower has a blue base, and that's the easiest way of describing how those work together. And can I see, look what I've managed to forget. There we are. Let's just do that and give that a good wash. And I'll have to grab some varnish in a minute, because amongst all of the clutter on my desk there is no varnish, but that's okay. There we are. Right, let us take some of these flowers. We're not going for paint by each one by the petals. We will add, we can add some dots of yellow in when we want to, when the top layer is dry, to define the colours for the pieces. And we can add some shade just by wiping back some of this and diluting it down with a little bit of water so that it's less pigment. So that's softening that. And that can then sit and dry. There we are. Might have a little bit more of that pigment over there, but there we are. We've got. And actually, once you've got that first layer of paint on, you'll find that it's easier to see what's going on. I'm going to add a little bit of water to that to spread it out. And that means you can also wipe it back more easily if that's what you want to do. There we are. It definitely helps once you've got a first layer on these to be able to see where each flower is, because it was almost impossible to see before I put that where the flower centres were because of the shine from the products. There we are. So those need a little bit of a dry. So let's go. So this is the Pentart Off-White, which, as I've said before, is actually a very soft grey. That's fine. It's fine. So I'm going to darken it up a little bit for parts of the. That's a chalk paint, but that's. Because that's the one I happen to have. Right. Let's just tidy up our gnomes. Beards a little bit. And give the tash back its whiteness. There we are. Can do that over the top. There we are. But I can still keep a little bit of hair underneath there. You definitely, when you're painting colour over colour, you definitely need the colour underneath to have dried. And now I need to be relatively careful because I don't want this, I do want the beard to be yellow, but I want still to be able to see the definition of the clothes. So he's still got a little bit of hair there and a little bit of hair there. And let's just make his tash, because he's all of these have got a tash, into a nice bright white. And let's just give him some bushy eyebrows that are also white. Yeah, he's not got bushy eyebrows like that one, but he does have. So let's just make him, give him a, he's a bit harder to work out what's going on. There we are. I think that was working. There we are. And then we'll give these all a blush dry. Yeah. Okay. We've got some. There we are. I think that's working. Yeah. Always step back. You can if you decide it wasn't the right thing to do, you can always come back and add. So let's just add. Take some of that soft grey, a little bit of that's probably way too much. Yeah, possibly way too much. No, I think that will work. That will work. So let's just give ourselves a grey wheel. Into here. all comes to life by painting these. Am I an expert painter? Not one bit. As long as you're happy with what you've done and you think it looks nice to your eyes, then that is all that matters. I have a butterfly that I've ignored completely. Haha, but that's okay. That's going to get some fairly simple painting because it doesn't need to be fancy. Won't matter if this has got the wheelbarrow's got a bit of texture and a bit of colour variation, because they're never pristine, are they? There we are. That will work for the wheelbarrow, I think. Let's pop that over there. Let's just give ourselves a nice grey shovel. Yeah, I think that's the correct word, isn't it? Shovel? Spade? Spades. Spade might be technically better, mightn't it? There we are. Cool. Okay. Let's just give that a little bit of clean. If I mix purple and yellow, I will definitely get mud. So that's not a good look. But I can add the red in with the purple, so I can get some changes, colour changes there, because those will work nicely together. There we are. We don't need, because butterflies aren't a single colour, are they? There we are. We might need to add some black into that for the body, but we might use that dark brown in a minute. There we are. There we are. That just adds a little bit of extra onto there. And then you drop the back of it in it, so because that's really what you wanted to do, not. Right, let's just take some of that. Add the antennae back and the body, so that's not going to take very long. Right. Excellent. I like it when a plan comes together. Right, that can go there, that can go there. Right, ladies, please close your eyes. Do not take offence to the next move. Let's just scrunch all of that lot up. I will need the yellow out, but I want a nice pure yellow, so we'll worry about that. That will clear that mess and mean that I don't put my hands in it, because that's, as we all know, is my next trick whenever I'm doing something like this. Good evening, Kirsty. Welcome, darling. Thank you for watching this evening. There we are. There we are. Let's just give that a little bit of a clean. That can go over there, that can go over there. Right. And let's de-yuck the hands, because they're filthy. Because they would be, wouldn't they? Yeah, of course they would be. Yeah, look at them. They're not bad for me, to be fair. They really are not bad for me. But there we are, that can go there. So I had a phone call from Sky in the week, or a few weeks ago, with the suggestion that we swapped our internet connections to the new fibre thing, and it would save us some money. So I'm always up for saving some money. That's always seems like a good move, because it takes a lot, and I must have been fairly distracted, because normally I just stick with what I've got. Well, I should have just stuck with what I, because yesterday the lady came to drill through the wall, which I knew was going to happen, and the net result of her drilling through the wall was I got an internal water feature, which was not quite what I had in mind. So my internet connectivity has not been changed. Surprise, surprise, because she couldn't. The plumber visited, which is also fine. Made a big hole in the wall where she'd gone through to get to the aforesaid broken, damaged pipes. To chop out a piece of 2 pipes, not just 1 but 2, and replace them, leaving me with said hole in the wall. Well, it's not very good. No, there you are. You can have it on better mode if that's better for you. Yeah. And the net result of all of that is I've now got to have someone else come to put right all of the mess from my internal water feature, which was not part of the game. And to cap it all, no doubt, they'll come and fix the wall, and then the lady has to come back to re-drill the wall, put the sky connection in, because they can't come back to do that until the 16th of April. Am I impressed? Not one little bit. Right, good. Oh, there you are. That's that. That's that. I tend not to put the 2 speeds on because it makes an awful noise. An awful noise. There we are. So let's just grab from the ridiculous store cupboard that we have on the side, because we all know I have a stupid amount of stuff, because why wouldn't I have a stupid amount of stuff? Actually, whilst the going is good, we can pick that one up. Oh, absolutely, they are paying for the repairs. It's all being done through Sky's insurance, and I have to be fair and say that they're being very efficient at doing that. I can't complain. Well, that's not going to work, is it? Right. Find my small bottles, which of course I took to a retreat and now can't find what I've done with them, but that's okay. Maybe that's one lurking down there. Excellent. I mean, I have to be fair to them, as they have been fine about it. It's not, well, that wasn't what we wanted to do, but there we are. It's actually quite a nice effect. So let's just add some yellow centres into the flowers, so it might look a bit more like the flowers. But yeah, I could have internal water feature was not quite the name of the game, and my poor loving husband is now really stressed and not coping very well. There we are. So that's just so a dotting tool is quite a useful tool when you're, I might swap to the smaller size for this set of flowers. Did I want all of that yellow? No, so let's have some yellow flowers intentionally, because that's what we're doing. We can have a mixture, because who says we can't? And if we really don't like it, I can repaint it off the life and change my mind. But actually, I think it'll be fine. Yeah. So my loving husband is saying, because we've got spare paint, because and of course it wouldn't be the small room in the house, would it? It has to be the biggest room that we've got in the house. That was painted last year. So my loving husband is saying, you're surely not going to get them to paint the whole room. And I'm saying, well, I know we've got some spare paint, but the paint's been on the wall for a year, so it will have changed slightly in shade. And if they can't colour match it exactly, it will irritate. So what do you think? Shall I insist that they redo the whole room, which is very big, so that I know that it's all perfectly colour matched? Or should I just let them try and colour match with the paint that we already have stuck in the garage? Because it will definitely cause less disruption if we just let them use what we've got. There we are. Oh wow, you see, so much for me thinking that this wasn't going to take so long. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be quite as long as last week's horrendous yoke life, but hey, it's a different project, and we all know that I like a good project, and no one else is following. So when you all get fed up and go, well, I'll get the message that maybe you don't want a life that's quite as long. There we are. So this is just a varnish. It's a water-based varnish. This one happens to be Silky Shine, but I could just as easily have picked up the matte. I am, of course, on Mission Use Up, so it's the bottle that actually has the least in it that I'm using at the moment. It will just add a layer of protection to my piece, and that's always cool. There we are. And then we can add in low lights and highlights, because again, it wouldn't be me if we didn't have a bit of low lighting and highlighting. There we are. Let's just cover all of that lot. We can put the eyes back in with a pen, because it's just much easier to do that after we've finished. Because the eyes will definitely need to be popped back in. There we are. So I like doing things like this, because if I pick up something that's less involved, yeah, particularly if I'm working for myself, it just takes me such a little time to do something, and then I think I'd rather have a smaller number of bigger projects. She says I still end up with a ridiculous number of projects, you know. Because why wouldn't I? Yeah, that's just what happens, isn't it? There we are. And there's way too much on there, but that's fine, because we've got the pots over here to just add a layer of varnish on. So we'll pick up the excess from there. That's maybe not completely dry, so some of those colours are mixing, but that's also just cool. We'll go with the flow. They've obviously, the Sky team or the broadband team have obviously got a well-trodden pathway of dealing with oops, we've gone through cables. Let's get rid of some of that, because it's just going to take forever to dry. There we are. Right, excellent. So that can go there, that can go there. Right, let us have a little bit of tidy up, because those can go back in the pot. That can go back in the pot. We'll need the white out for dry brushing. That can go over there. That can go over there. Those can go in the pot over there. That lives over there. Haven't used that. That's okay. That goes back in a different place. Right. Eeny, meeny, miny. Let's just pop those out of harm's way for the moment. It will come together relatively quickly, I promise you, once we are done. So currently, I mean, this is lovely. Well, I think it's lovely. It's got lots and lots of texture. Whether these will come out is another matter. So I have taken some black and white antiquing gel and mixed it with some water to make a grey spray. Because again, why buy stuff if you don't have to? And I've also got some of the brown diluted with water as a spray. Now these have been made a little while, so I'm rather hoping, you see they are. So they are going to grunge up all of that texture. Really easily. Yeah, and it will sink into that texture paste, so, which is fine, but it just is easy. So the tonic one is working nicely. Let's see if we can see. That is definitely locked. That should be there. So there we are. You see, that's definitely been gunged up at some point. My fault for not taking the spray noodle out. Right, so that's obviously got something in it. Let's just mix some of those colours. There we are. So we've now definitely got a grungy wall. Quite like a bit more of that brown black over there. There we are. Let's just let it encourage it down a bit and it will soften in. Right, now I'm going to want to put some paper in the bottom of there. She says best of British luck when that's sopping wet. But that's fine because everything else now needs a jolly good dry. So you can see that my antique key gels have really diluted, and you can make that mix as strong or as pale as you want, but it's definitely giving me a very old wool feel. So let's just give all of this lot a good dry. Let's not stick our pieces together. Because that would also not be very helpful. Everyone is being very quiet this evening. Not bad. I need the bottom to dry before I put a piece of paper to fit in. It's a bit drier than it absolutely is. We'll be able to see when it's properly dry, won't we? Yeah. Paper's never going to stick in where I want it if I don't have the base properly dry. Right, I'm going to pop that over there for the moment. Those two can go out of harm's way. That can go there. That can cool down. Let's just mop the mess. And see how dry these pieces are. They need to be a bit more dry than they absolutely are at the moment. The flowers now look more flower-like. You can see lots more detail if I lift this up to the camera. They look a bit like tremulous maybe with an eye of faith, possibly maybe. Or if it's not. There we are. Yeah, I've got all the bits that I want. Yeah, for me this is quite a pared back project, you say? Possibly maybe. Let's put a pared back project. Before I will use a pen to draw in the eyes, but they're going to have to be absolutely dry to do that, so that will probably happen after Eliza's finished, so otherwise we're going to have a bit of a pickle. So let's add in some detail into these to add some depth, and we're going to need to be reasonably careful. We don't need a whacking great big brush. We can be reasonably precise, so I'm just going to add this in so that I can take off what I don't, wipe out what I don't want. It will spread a bit, but that's fine, but it's going to give me some depth and some details in. I don't necessarily want everything to be brown. There we are. But I don't necessarily want it all to be pristine either, and it really is going to help define some of the detail on there. So let's just take this and let's just wipe back what we want to wipe back. You need to do it while it's wet, but it's going to add and show up lots of the detail in the piece. There we are. And that's exactly why I put the varnish on, because I can now rub a lot more firmly than I could if I didn't have the varnish in place. So there we are. So it's, again, it's less pristine, because garden gnomes aren't going to be pristine, are they? There we are. So that works. That works. Let's just take some of that black, add it into there. Let's just lift that then off the beard so it's less stark white. There we are, that's better. Might add a bit more back into there. There we are. So this is when, you know, you'll often see me just literally pop my antiquing stuff over every last bit of what I'm doing, but today I'm definitely being more select about what I'm doing, because of the look that I'm aiming for. As I say, by popping the varnish on, it's giving me a slippy surface and it's protected, so I can lift this off much more off than I could, and I can rub much more firmly than if I didn't have you know, the varnish on. So we might end up with a mucky face at this point, but that's okay. We'll work with it. She says, putting her hand in the stuff. There we are. So let's just take off as much of that as we want. There we are. That's better. So he's just got some details in there. Put the black where you don't want it on that one. Why not? There we are. So I find that the brown is just softer for distressing or adding low lights. This is literally the brown, but there is an umbre, which is a darker colour. It depends on the look that you're wanting, I guess, as to where we're going. There we are. So. That's better. We can now see far, well, I can see far more the crinkles in the clothing. I might go in later on and add some pink on those cheeks, but on the other hand I might not. There we are. Okay. Excuse me. Right, brown onto there. Yeah, brown lid can go on. We don't need that, we don't need that. Let's just add some of that black into there. And we can take it back off the surfaces. Don't obviously need it on that, but the grey is too clean. I know I intentionally put the grey on there, but you don't have to have it all clean. Better. That's better. Right, eeny meeny, let's pop that onto there. Thank you, Dominic. From the lack of people commenting, I did sort of wonder if anyone was still awake. It's nice to know. Maybe it's too late. Would you prefer me to go live earlier on? That's also a bit of a challenge, but yeah. Would you prefer me to do my lives on a different day? That's also a bit of a challenge, given that I do lives for Pentart on a Tuesday and my own page on a Sunday, but willing to listen to suggestions so that people have what they want. There's a good few people missing. I know that, oh, I know why. Several people will be at the Anthony's workshops, won't they, down in near Milton Keynes. So let's just add a little bit of gold onto there for that butterfly, little bit of gold onto there, to that will work. I'm not going to add metallics onto the others, but I will add it onto the bits on the bag, and just a little bit onto those little thank you, Sue. There we are. Right. Eeny meeny. You'll be delighted to know, ladies, we are about to stick it all together. Well, maybe we're not, because that's still soaking wet. Let's just give it another good blast. That is also very true, Dominic. You cannot pick a time that works for everyone. Thank you, Connie. They are very sweet. Okay. Right. I might add some dry brushing onto that wall later on. It's still a bit damp, and dry brushing on damp really doesn't work. Oh, she says. Here we are. And horror of horrors, we're getting down on our heavy body gel. Having had an EU Mountains worth. So I want this piece to sit in the back of there. It's got my title and I need it to sit there because of the way I'm wanting to pop stuff in. So let us just align that, and let's take a ruler, because rulers are always useful activities, aren't they? Yep. And that is 16.5 centimeters. So let us tackle she says doing a dance. So 16.5. Oh, not that way round. 16.5 can go there, and that can go there. And I'm not going to trust that my frame is square, because too often they aren't square. and I can go in and under. So let me just see. 16.5. So that is 20.3. So if I take 2 centimeters off that side, and just under 2 centimeters off that side, with a bit of luck and a wing and a prayer to whoever you might believe in, we can then, with a bit of luck, get that wriggled into there. So we will need some glue. That's just proper there. This is just PVA glue. It'll be box standard PVA that I've just put into an old tube, old bottle, that's just going to allow me to drizzle it into place, because actually it came in a 500ml pot and they're a nightmare to try and use. So there we are. Let's just pop that into there. Let's grab an old brush that's not going to get, I'm not going to get too heartbroken over if I spread that about a bit, so we don't have a big thick globs to soak through. That will work reasonably well. Stick that into there. Right. Okay. And then let's just shuffle that up into place underneath there, underneath that, so it will go straight, and it's slightly bigger intentionally because that way I can tuck the edge under the canvas edges and no one will be any the wiser. So I'll just use my palette knife to do that and squash it in, pop it underneath, click it into place, and the palette knife will absolutely help get it. Just pop it in. There we are. Give that a little push. There we are. Okay. So let's just pop some of these pieces in. So I want the little barrel. I'm going to pop that there. I'm going to pop the little flowers there. I've got another set of flowers, so let's just pop that set there, that set there, the barrel there, those on top of there. I quite like. Let us put our gnome there. We might put our gnome, we'll see. We will see. We have, what did I want? Mr. Gnome there. I think I might do that. There we are. Right, now then, let's pop him there. The barrel can go on the top. There we are. The butterfly can come. I think I'm just going to pop it on this. I want it at an angle, whatever. So let's just pop the butterfly there, and that can go there. And I will put those in. Right. No problem, Connie. I am aware that my lives tend to take a good amount of time, but it's what happens when you do mixed media. Okay. Let's just pop that there. Pop that up the right way. There we are. Let's just pop you. Was it that one that I had? Let's just pop you onto there. It'll all come together quite nicely. Let's just wipe that mess, because we don't want a pile of white glue there long term. Let's get an older brush and a bit of water. There we are. That can go onto there. That can go there. Can always add other bits as we want to. There we are. Let's tuck him there. He can go there. This might prove a bit more of a challenge, but hey ho. We'll go for it. And then, yeah, I think I'm going to pop that one onto there. I think I like it over there, as if it's stuck by the barrel. Let's just lift that, lift that, lift that. Pop you back in place. There we are. So, and then I just need to grab a brush. That's very wet paint. That suggests that I have done extra to that, so let's just add some dry brushing to that wall. This I will generally add 5 or 6 layers to, so I won't add all of that tonight, because I need to do the sides as well, and can't easily do that at the moment. There we are, because everything else is wet. There we are. And it wouldn't be with me without a splatter or two, so why not just go for it and embrace it. There we are. Excellent. So ladies, that is our make for tonight. We have our garden shed. I do need to just de-speckle those faces. There we are. And again, because they are varnished, it makes life easy. I can do that, and I squash those down as I wipe them down. So I will add some black to the eyes so that they look more human when it is fully dry, and all I will use to do this, that is my micron pen. I don't think okay, it is just about out dry enough. If you do it when it's not dry, all you will do is mess up your micron pen. There we are. So we've now got some eyes. It's always good to have some eyes, isn't it? There we are. So ladies, that is our finished piece for tonight. I know it's a bit of a mammoth. It always is when I've got pieces, you know, lots of resin pieces, but then it wouldn't be one of my makes if we didn't have lots of resin pieces. So I make no apologies for sticking to my style of makes. So my intention is that I will be live on Saturday, not quite on Sunday at 3 o'clock, barring anything else going on, and hopefully and then I'm back live for Pentart on Tuesday on their channel. So all in all, I hope, ladies, you've enjoyed the live. Whatever you do, please remember to look after each other, stay safe with whatever you're doing, and be kind. And I look forward to seeing you online soon. Bye.